And let's bring the next session down to something much more immediate and much more relevant to Pakistan and perhaps the business of a lot of people in this room. We're going to talk about the relationship with China. We're going to talk about the One Belt, One Road project and the CPEC that is relevant to this situation. We were hoping to have with us today Senator Mushahid Hussain Syed, but unfortunately he can't make it. But nonetheless, we have the rest of the panel who will engage you in the ideas and the relevance of the One Belt, One Road project in a Pakistan context for the next 45 minutes. Sajid Aslam is the country head for Pakistan of ACCA. Please join us on the... And Ayla Majid is the Global Council member of ACCA and a young global leader at the World Economic Forum. They'll have a chat about these events, and maybe we can get a few questions from the floor at the end of this. If you guys talk for 30 or 40 minutes, then we can take a question or two. Thank you very much.
Which side? Yeah? Okay.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I hope we can hear some voice back. So I think it's going to be an interesting one, so we would like to have your attention there. The format which we are trying to evolve is something which we used in Islamabad as well. It's a Belt and Road beyond CPAC. Ayla, we're very thankful to Ayla. She will be presenting and setting a scene that what ACCA has done so far in terms of the research, what are our findings. So we will try to take 10 minutes or 15 minutes max. So, and then we will try to get more questions from the audience in terms of what they think and what the level of understanding exists in a room, and particularly around the opportunity, where the opportunity lies and how we can really materialize that opportunity for that. So I think here I'd like to have Ayla present some slides around raising the awareness that where ACCA stands in terms of its research as we speak today. Ayla, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sajid. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So Belt and Road, a very interesting project, and something that we in Pakistan, of course, have been talking for since 2013 at least. And it's, a lot of people have speculations about it. A lot of people have unanswered questions. And a lot of people see this as an opportunity. So here, representing ACCA, I'll be sharing with you first the broader context of what is One Belt, One Road. And then I'll be talking a little bit about what is one of the corridors, which is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and what is that people think about it. ACCA has done considerable amount of work on this. Just to mention that ACCA is a global body of accountants, almost 200,000. We'll be touching 200,000 members around the globe. And we are present in almost 24 of the 60 plus One Belt, One Road countries. All right, so at ACCA, we figured out that we need to move with the new world economic order. So obviously, we had to prepare ourselves, gear ourselves. So we've been doing a lot of research and producing great research and insight material. So I'll be sharing with you findings of some of our research. These are two of the reports, and I believe you have QR codes available at your tables, and if you could scan them, you will be able to access these reports. So one of them is the Belt and Road Initiative reshaping the global value chain, while the other talks about the opportunities in Pakistan, and particularly around the CPEC corridor. So what is One Belt, One Road? There are 5 priorities around this. So it's essentially about global trade, policy coordination, people-to-people relationship, and then connecting infrastructure. We all know that infrastructure is the most important thing for us to create linkages. We've been talking since yesterday about the digital infrastructure which has connected and made this world into a small global village. It's absolutely essential to have physical infrastructure also. So Belt and Road affects about 1/3 of the GDP of the world and about 2/3 of the global population. It affects 60 billion people, connects 60 billion people, 4.4 billion people in over 60 countries. And it is, we talk about China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, whereas it is much, much larger, much, much broader. So here, the map that you see includes the shows you the 6 corridors: China, Mongolia, Russia, the new Eurasian land bridge, Indo-China Peninsula, Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar, which is the maritime route, and then within this, we also have the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Now, it is about what is One Belt, One Road. It is about rebalancing the global economy. It is about the new economic order, and it is also about promoting globalization. Whereas countries and people at times like to sort of have their own sort of dynamics. They like to work within the boundaries. We've been talking a lot about centennials and millennials. Millennials do not believe in boundaries. And I think we need to think in a much, much larger perspective and connect people. So this is really where this new economic order is what the millennials also want. And they would be the ones driving this forward. And here we are just creating an enabling environment. So bulk of this One Belt, One Road is about creating infrastructure, setting up infrastructure, and we all know how important that is. And it takes me back to 1949 when there was a war in Korea, and the first thing that the head of state, or I forget his name, the first thing that he wanted to do was to construct a highway. And we know that where South Korea today is, it is in one of the top 10 economies of the world. So how critical this infrastructure is. McKinsey has predicted that the global infrastructure needs are about $50 trillion till 2030. So I'll be talking a little bit more about this $50 trillion, so bear this in your mind, and I'll link this with the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and what is the kind of investment that is going into. So obviously, the world has its own geopolitics. A lot of countries and a lot of people would say that this One Belt, One Road is about geopolitics. Well, even if it is geopolitics, it's completely okay because it is, the bulk of it, it is majorly about geoeconomics. So obviously, the US, many other economies, they have their sort of concerns, risk, China becoming the world's fastest or sort of the largest economy. There are concerns, but I think people will start to think differently. And the way the older generation thought, the way my generation thinks, or the generation next thinks, we have all altered our ways of thinking. And I think we need to look forward. And this is all we at ACCA are about, thinking ahead. So there are, of course, external challenges. There are other challenges also, that there are market instabilities. There's a lot of competition. There are turmoil in BR countries. There is trade protectionism, but all over we see a lot of positive things coming out of the Belt and Road project, and hence this is something that we should start to embrace and then enhance our knowledge and to move forward with this. So moving on to China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, what does this offer? So we've been hearing this magic number of $46 billion, and a lot of concern that where is this money going to come from? So first look at this in the global context. I showed you the McKinsey number, $49 trillion of infrastructure investment needed till 2030. Here in Pakistan, we are only talking about $46 billion, which is 0.13% of this global number. If we look at Pakistan's Pakistan's infrastructure index rating, globally, we are sort of close to somewhere where Nigeria is. Where do we want to be? If we want to grow our economy, we obviously need to invest in infrastructure. And bulk of this infrastructure development is with public-private partnership. There are questions that where is this funding going to come from? The projects, bulk of these projects are self-sustainable. Bulk of the funding is coming from private sector, private banks. So the major chunk of this is energy, then 13% is roads, then it's transport, then it's rail, of course, also. And then once we build this infrastructure around this, of course, there are economic zones, there are lots of opportunities. And if you look at the map, it is crossing all throughout the country and benefiting, all the way going to Gwadar, which is also the linchpin of CPEC, and is extremely critical to the success of the One Belt, One Road entire project. So there are various estimates as part of the ACCA report also. What we have looked at that it's going to increase about 700,000 to 800,000 jobs. There is another estimate that it's going to increase Pakistan's economy by 2.5%. There are a number of industries that will come up. We are not only looking at upgrading the sort of living index in Pakistan, creating more jobs, but looking at serving in one way or the other the 4.4 billion population linked with CPEC. And I think Pakistan is very ideally placed. And we've looked at earlier speakers sort of showed, flashed a slide that 75% of our population is young, under the age of 30 or so. So I think we are extremely ideally placed. So one of the research that ACCA did, we interviewed about 500 companies, 500 respondents around the country, and looked at their preparedness to be part of this CPEC. So 79% of the companies said that it is part of our 5-year plan. Most of the companies, like 86% of the respondents said that we would like to learn the language, we would like to understand, sort of reduce this barrier of understanding. Then obviously as part of the risk mitigation plan they are looking at. So there are obviously challenges we need to gear ourselves, but we need to answer the obvious questions and be ready for that. So what are the strengths? I've already talked about the human capital. We have the natural resources. We have the strategic location. We have there is requirement for infrastructure investment, and that is coming from within the country. Most of these projects, I've been advising on infrastructure projects as well, and bulk of this investment is coming from Pakistan. And these projects are very, very self-sustainable. Then what are the opportunities? Public-private partnership. Globally, this is the model for growth, public-private partnership. We need to work together. It has to be an inclusive growth. There are obviously job opportunities. Then looking at the outsourcing industry, I think there was also a mention earlier that Pakistan has become a hub for outsourcing. So this is also creating a platform. Now, obviously, with any opportunity, there are threats and there are weaknesses also. But in this particular case, while the weaknesses are there in terms of, I think the biggest weakness is lack of awareness, and hence we are talking about this now. to create an awareness, to have this discourse so that we reduce the fears and develop a better understanding of what all this is about. There are obviously concerns with regards to transparency. There are concerns with regards to the environmental degradation and environmental effect. But if we put everything together in a nutshell, since we are at a nutshell conference, the strengths and opportunities completely outweigh the threats and the weaknesses. So this is just about to set the scene and sort of encourage you to look at that, what are the questions that you need to ask yourself. So first of all, you need to ask yourself at an individual level or at a company level, at a corporate level, that how this will affect your life and the life of your organization. You need to develop this understanding. Then we also, since Pakistan is the first corridor being implemented, we have the opportunity to analyze and look at the lessons that are in the projects that are being implemented or will be implemented in the next couple of years. Now to maximize from these opportunities, obviously we need to learn new skills, whether it is a technical skill, whether it is a knowledge skill, whether it is a language skill. So learning new skills is absolutely essential. And I quite liked the debate that was happening the other day around enhancing leadership, new styles of leadership, and looking at how AngloCorp is sort of changing their leadership style and encouraging people to look at new models. So we also need to get up and start learning these new skills. And I think a number of educational institutions, they have already started teaching Chinese in schools. So that's something, and not only limit to that, because once this OBOR, One Belt, One Road is implemented, the world is the canvas. We have access not only to China, but westward also. Then we need to, of course, prepare the human resource. I've already talked about that for related industries. In Pakistan, we are not even fully industrialized. And the World Economic Forum last year, the discussion around the annual meeting was about the fourth industrial revolution. The digital revolution. We are now, the world has invented 3D. There are actually buildings being implemented by 3D. So we need to sort of move forward and look at what are the skills that we can do, what are the kind of industries that we can set up in Pakistan. Then, of course, there is no substitute for people-to-people connection. Digital is absolutely great, but when people-to-people meet, they exchange ideas, and they have a conversation, communication, I'm a great believer, is the strongest tool. When we communicate with each other, we understand that what is there on the other side, how is that we can build a good relationship. So I encourage all of you to explore. And then, of course, engaging knowledgeable people to develop a detailed strategy for your organization. You need to engage with the experts, engage with people from your industry, people from different industries, and of course, take in input from the centennials and the millennials also. Learn about cross-border trade, learn about new way of doing business, and enhance your skill set, enhance your knowledge. So think ahead. And at the end, I would also like to leave you with this thought that the entire One Belt, One Road project, as well as CPEC, it is about inclusive growth. It is about inclusive growth, not only from the economic perspective, but from the social perspective also. I would like to link this with another presentation that was made the other day, the AngloCorp and the Sindh coal mining project. the way they are including the locals, the way they are creating the jobs, enhancing the skill set. It is about inclusive growth. And inclusive growth is what is long-lasting. And when we talk about inclusive social and economic growth, for people within these parts where CPEC is implemented, whether it is people from Gwadar, whether it is people in Kashgar, or people in different countries, different parts of the world that are linked with CPEC, it's important to create their buy-in, create their benefit, and make them the beneficiary of these projects. And by this way, I think we are going to address a much larger issue. We are actually creating a much more harmonized and a peaceful world. And this is how the new generation thinks, that we do not want any kind of problems in this world, simply put. We want to coexist, and we want to create a better world and create better humanity. So I think at the end of the day, we all are humans. We need to understand that what are the core needs, what are the core values, and keeping that at the back of our minds, we need to really think ahead. So thank you with that. I'm happy to take questions. And just to sort of mention again, while the QR codes are available at your table, you can also visit the ACCA Global website. Great amount of absolutely fabulous research available on this topic as well as many others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayla. I hope most of the people have found this particular slides and presentation very informative and interesting, but we do request, just do visit website and see the entire detailed report. It has got case studies, and it's also reflecting on how the Chinese companies, and in case of economic benefit of Silk Route, how the Pakistani companies are taking advantage of it. Just to open the forum for questions, so my first question I'll pick up with Ayla, and then we open the entire forum. Ayla, given that you are heavily involved in this research and you are also involved in some of the transaction, from Pakistan perspective, which stakeholder you believe can drive this benefit or the CPAC in general as an opportunity for our society or our economy?
I think it's a very simple answer: the private sector and the people of the country. Everybody has got an opportunity in this whole pie. It is about increasing your business. It is about increasing your trade, increasing your access to the global markets, and also benefiting from the financially, also economically, also in terms of human capital development also.
No, thank you, Ayla. I think while we are talking about the private sector and we are talking about the biggest change which Pakistan is going to face, and Pakistan is not the only one, it's one of the 6 corridors. So now we open the floor for the question. So do you feel the same, like we have seen, there are a lot of leaders who are sitting right now here. Do you feel that it's a private sector and businesses and entrepreneur who can really drive this forward and make or bring it as an opportunity to Pakistan? Question. Can we have Mike?
May I throw in the first question? Because this is a fascinating conversation, and I want to cause trouble. I want to make things difficult for you for a second.
Okay.
I've heard everything you've said about the plan, the potential, the threats, the weaknesses, the strengths, the opportunities. But I still want to ask this one question. Is the Belt and Road China's attempt to take over? Is the Belt and Road China's attempt to take over? Not just Pakistan, but most of Asia.
I think I would go back to something that I said a little bit earlier, that how is the world moving forward? And how do people integrate with each other? How do people interact with each other? Do we really want a world which is where countries are apart, people are apart? We may have our own interests. Obviously, everybody needs to look at their own interests. But globally, how is the world moving forward? People need to be people need the field to be connected with each other. They want to be at peace with each other. I personally do not see this as China's attempt to take over. China cannot build this entire project on their own. We talk about public-private partnership. It is about China's partnership with many different countries also. So it is about an inclusive growth. And I personally, I don't feel not even the slightest bit of threat. What we need to individual at the country level, we obviously need to have a good regulatory framework. We need to have the right kind of policy. But we cannot, I mean, inertia is obviously always there. But we need to overcome this inertia and think that, no, it is not a threat. We need to create this threat into an opportunity.
Just to add one thing on that, are we ready to be taken over? So that's the other question. Are we ready as Pakistan to be taken over by China, or we can create opportunity for ourselves?
Can you hear me? Sorry. I have a question. How many people can easily get visa to China? Whole the agreement is like, let me explain something. Whole the agreement, when we met different people in a business community, we have a perception that this whole agreement is like a unilateral agreement. It's not a bilateral, first of all. Second, if you visit their projects, you can find many prisoners working in their projects, and they prefer their people to work on the project, not our people. They have their separate communities, separate colonies, everything is totally separate. And how can we, as a Muslim people, gel with the people, those who are very less in ethics? I tell you, because they are very open to eat everything, we are not. Muslim people working with them are not totally comfortable on the projects, facing many of challenges in daily life. So it's look like that China is ready to take over this country as a colony, and it is a general perception, ma'am. Can you explain?
Thank you so much for calling it a perception, because it is very much a perception. And I'm glad, thank you again for asking this question, because a lot of people feel that I mean, if in a project, if Chinese people are working, I don't see that as a problem, as long as if they bring the skill set. I mean, you mentioned that there are prisoners working. How does that affect your life? Personally, I don't think that would affect your life. As long as those people, they are regulated, they are monitored. I mean, that's again a perception, but I do not think that affects anyone's life. And when we talk about sort of coming from a culture which is where we are sort of not so open to, I mean, we've got our own culture, but we've got to be open to let others have their own culture. You know, when I've asked various Chinese people that how do they see their understanding or their sort of interaction with people from other parts of the world, they do not want to impose their culture at all. I was at a similar conversation in the Middle East about last month, and there there was a Chinese professor. He was asked somewhat the same. And he said, we don't differentiate people on the basis of being Muslim or being Jew or having any other religion. We have our own interest in terms of economic growth, in terms of inclusive growth. So, you know, a lot of Pakistanis, a lot of Muslims, they are working in different parts of the world. And they are working in sync with the rest of the world. And a lot of them have been great success stories also. We need to open our minds. We need to break these mental barriers. So one of the things, again, one of the things that I really would like to stress, that explore more and then do away with these mental barriers, increase your knowledge, and look at that, just in silence for a moment, observe that all these perceptions that are created, are these mental blocks, are these something that the media is telling you? Is this something, what is your own linkage with this? Are you being affected with this? So I'll leave you with that.
I have a question. China has been allowed.
If we should wait for the microphone, there's a lady with the microphone here. If you could just.
My question is, and I've heard these questions that have been asked before me, and I feel a lot of this insecurity about China taking over stems from us being insecure about our skills that maybe we won't be able to deliver. So I just want to ask if, what do you see as a role of the education system in Pakistan in, training the skills that's needed, and the government sector as well as the private schools?
Thank you. I think very valid question. You rightly picked up. It's our fears and insecurity which is not letting us see the realities which exist, or the realities we can create, or the realities which really exist out there. I think I would like to highlight that the project, Belt and Road, are 6 corridors. CPAC is the one which has made a significant progress so far, and there are other 5 which need to make such progress. First of all, the opportunity which exists for Pakistan is to support China or Belt and Road project in general, to really build that capability set and the skill set to help them do the other 5 as well. So that's a big business opportunity which exists out there for our private sector to build that capability. From an education perspective, when we talk about it, I think there's a lot of research which is already available, and we have also identified the skill set, or let's put it as a capability sets which are required, particularly with the Belt and Road related opportunity. So definitely there's an understanding of the contract. That's very, very important, which came out that. What are the benefits which exist under Belt and Road, and also understanding the connectivity which Belt and Road is bringing out. So research capability, really creating those opportunities, identifying those opportunities. So that's one of an area which definitely has a capability set required in our education system, which is, again, if I simplify, critical thinking. And it's also required at our leadership within the corporate sector to really think and see beyond those fear and beyond those obvious things, that where we can really go for it. From a training, and again going back to the education, I think the learning around the culture, what their culture is, what does it mean? And you will be surprised, most of the time they adopt the culture of a destination of a country, rather than the destination country adopting that. But definitely knowing our own culture, there will be certain things which we may like to have, and there are certain things, and particularly very rightly highlighted, the ethical dilemmas which they may have, we may not like to really multiply our problem like we are already going through. So ethics is another area. As a civil society, we have to bring it back to our education system. Civic sense is another one which we have to bring back to our education system. Trust among the team and the conflict management within the team, as well as within the education system in a classroom. These are the competencies and the capability set which has to be blended in our regular education now. Our education system does not suffer that we don't have a talented people. Our education system most of the time suffer because we don't build people to let them ask questions. They are not very keen in asking questions. They are more keen in getting the answer straight away without asking those questions, without getting in that thought process. So I think that's another capability which we have to build within the education system. If you say from a content perspective, from a course perspective, you can maximum add some chapters or some information or knowledge around the Belt and Road and China, and not China, but all 60 countries, how their culture will be merged. But most importantly, the critical thinking, we have to bring back, asking questions, doing research, making sure we are not building our opinion based on somebody else's opinion, we are doing right research. I think these are the capabilities which we are looking for within our education system, whether it's an early stage or university level or a professional education like ACCA.
Yeah. I'll just very briefly add one thing to this. We really need to rethink our education, the education infrastructure, the education model. We need to produce people, leaders for tomorrow. And for that, when the future is changing, we are looking at a completely changed future. The existing enabling environment of the existing education system may not be fit for future. So we need to continuously think and evolve in that domain also.
Good afternoon. The reality of the past couple of years, Pakistan economy has suffered, particularly the engineering industry, in terms of dumping by China in Pakistan. That is a fact of life. You may agree or you may not agree. The second issue that I want to highlight is that in imports in Gwadar, for 40 years you've given them the right to bring in goods without duty. That is going to kill your industry. Well, what are you trying to promote here?
You can answer.
Moreover, if you can highlight
Yeah,
a sizable export from Pakistan to China, may be over $50 million. Please,
Okay.
other than defense, if you want.
All right, I can
That
go
is
and then
over
you can.
$50 million, kindly highlight.
Okay, so first of all, we need to look at that. What do we have to offer? Have we invested enough? Have we diversified enough in our own industry? That what do we have to offer to the rest of the world in terms of competitive products, in terms of competitive services? There are certain sectors where Pakistan has its strength, but Pakistan has not really. We need to look inward and look at. We need to look inward and see that how have we addressed, regardless of China, Pakistan's exports have gone down. The reason being because the world has evolved in terms of production, in terms of bringing down costs, in terms of having access to all the global markets. And if we do not stay relevant, if we do not stay fit, it is not the China-Pakistan economic corridor, but they can be threats for. I'll give you an example of Nokia. Nokia was a company which started perhaps with making wood-cutting machines. And then they became so smart in producing, they were one of the finest sort of engineering models, and they developed phones. Now, how many of you, if I can ask you to raise your hands, how many of you use Nokia phones? All right, I see a few people, maybe just 3 hands in a crowd of probably 200, so like less than 1%. Companies, countries, people, if they want to stay relevant, they need to invest in themselves. So now coming back to the industry, that how Pakistan industry will be affected. For that, number one, we need to have the right kind of policy framework. We need to have the right kind of regulatory framework. And our policymakers, of course, need to think this through to look at the benefit of the local industry also, local business people, as well as the local population also. And here I find a great opportunity for Pakistan businesses to work with Chinese. I think we need to find, with these threats, we need to look for opportunities.
I have a, excuse me.
I would like to further add to my question, which I earlier asked, because our experiences with China, especially we go step forward with China whenever there is anything. And probably that flexibility is not for the Western country.
Okay.
What we have experienced in the past, we go steps forward as far as China is concerned, and that flexibility or that opportunity is not given to most of the Western countries. I can give you many examples about that. When we talk about our industry, you said we have to increase our pie. Our pie is limited for probably 200 million people.
We need to increase our skill set.
Excuse me, ma'am, let me complete.
Increase our technology.
Let me complete.
Yeah.
already our industry has badly suffered because of China after 2005. We have very few strength. Textile is one of them. After 2005, our hosiery industry has totally gone. And as a joke, China announced that we give you privilege exports of hosiery items to China. And we couldn't export even of $1 million. What to say anything plus of that. The threat is that if we don't set do's and don'ts for the China, especially to safeguard our industry, tomorrow they are going to take over all our industry and their own people will be working over there like they are doing in other parts of the world. Because they have to look after the interest of their people. They have to feed more than 1 billion people of their country. And all these projects which China is financing, they are not taking this project for the sake of Pakistan. It is their interest. They are safeguarding their interest. And moreover, you have highlighted very few things where we do have the opportunities. And right now, we are looking at only agriculture that is going to be exported to either Russia and China or other countries. And that is likely to bring another pressure to the people of Pakistan because those products which are cheaply available in Pakistan will become extremely expensive for the poor of this country.
Do you want to answer?
I think it's a very fair assumption that the competition is going to be extensive. Yeah. Even with CPAC, without CPAC, competition is going to be extensive. How we will survive, that's one of our feedback, and that's why this conversation is taking place. We can't do it alone, we can do it collectively. We have to bring that feedback back to the policymakers. They are waiting for the private sector to move on, come back, work with them, work through them, and make sure these opportunities and the challenges can be addressed. Right now, what our research is reflecting is the lack of awareness and the initiative. People are still not very clear who is doing what and when. We have our fears and we are basically bringing those concern and fear out in different conferences and all that. I think now it's a time where we have to really create those groups, and ideally from the private sector and the entrepreneurship, that this is how they see the opportunity, go back and engage with the policymaker and even assist them how the policy should be. This is exactly what's happening in China. Their private sector and the companies and the entrepreneurs, they are engaging with the Chinese government and they are trying to drive those policy. That's why when you go back to the Belt and Road, there is a policy coordination which exists there, but the policies cannot come up out of blue. Somebody has to really provide those guidance. I think in our society right now, their fears, concerns, and the perceptions are higher than what the tangible steps we as a society can take before we rejecting it as an opportunity. I think the general consensus when we see there is an opportunity and there are competition and there are threats. The question is more how we going to take those tangible steps to get engaged, analyze, explore, and make sure those policies which are being formed right now are formed in a right way. Right now, we have seen a very small stuff around the CPAC. It's more around the energy. We are talking about the road. We haven't started thinking about the economic zones. Which labor will be working there? How we are going to standardize our transportation standard. So if one truck moving from China to Gwadar, is it a left-hand drive or is it a right-hand drive? What is the tire size should be? What should be the carbon emission which is acceptable for Pakistan? These are the things which has to go back. Whether our population in terms of the labor law, should we protect one industry? For example, you can come back and say, textile is the industry which is protected. China can't invest it. That's a private sector feedback to the policymaker. But are we making those steps? This is a question, and that's where we need now more engagement. And that's why when we talk about what are the 7 key areas, so explore, engage, and we have to really go back and guide the government as well. Government can't do that without the private sector. Ultimately, the beneficiary or the driver is going to be the business. And if the business is not going back and engaging well, so that will remain a challenge. And these forums are basically to provoke that thought that where the responsibility lies right now. All threats, we can talk about it like days and days, how to resolve it. What are the steps which we should be taking? And that's what the key purpose of when we talk about these forums right now.
Okay,
So
I have a question.
I'll just add to just what Jeet said, that what is the biggest resource that we have? It's our human resource. It's a human resource, and this human resource with brilliant ideas can actually take over the world in terms of economics.
We have time for one more question. There's a gentleman there.
Okay, I like to.
There are plenty of people waiting, and there's a gentleman with a mic down there as well who's been waiting for a long time.
It was an excellent. It was an excellent presentation, especially about the CPAC. But I just want to add a few things. The great game being played is for economics, and for that, China has launched OBAR. So OBAR has become one of the main components of the great game. Similarly, CPAC becomes the main component of OBAR, and CPAC main component is Gwadar. And Gwadar main component is Gwadar port. Till we don't operationalize Gwadar port, I don't think that we are going to achieve what for this whole project is launched. Ms. Alia, you didn't talk about Gwadar, whereas I personally feel to please operationalize the Gwadar port and link it with Kashgar and Central Asia. That is the basic concept of CPAC. We are going away from the basic concept of CPAC. We are just, one of the slides you showed, almost 75% is being spent on energies, and rest, some small amount is being spent on infrastructure. So I will request that in your presentation you should include the importance of Gwadar, because once we operationalize Gwadar, we can do transshipment from there, we can do transit trade from there, and of course, then afterward we can develop economic zones and other things. And for that, I will just say one slogan: build Gwadar and develop Pakistan. Thank you.
Okay. I think we'll take one or two more questions all together.
I just.
We can respond.
Okay, I wanted to. My name is Bilal.
Where are you?
My name is Bilal, and
He's standing at the
I
back.
wanted to add something that the gentleman over there said, that we are being colonized by China. So basically what yesterday from ACCA, we had a presentation where they said that they have given total opportunity to Tharis, because they are using their land, they are using everything, they are using their resources. So at the end of the day, the Tharis should get the most benefit out of it. So referring to the gentleman who just added that when we are taking away the local labor, the local jobs, and getting Chinese people in there, eventually we will end up just like Sui or like Balochistan, that we cannot do anything there, and people will be like, highly upset about the other nationalities coming in and working on their grounds and taking away all the resources. Secondly, my question is that all the toll that will be generated by CPEC is the property of China. Pakistan doesn't get any share out of it. So how does that benefit us? Thirdly, the economic zones which are being built, whether we will be allowed to do anything in it or it will be all China owned. That is, these are the questions which are for everyone, and everyone wants to know, because
Thank you for the
people
questions.
have been doing political scoring on it and providing energy and nothing more than that.
All right, so quickly on Gwadar and Bilal, your point about the model that is implemented by Thar Coal Company. And I said this in my presentation also, that I'm a firm believer that there has to be social and economic inclusion. And I love the model that they have there. And I said that this is what we need to do. We need to look after the local people throughout the economic corridor in Pakistan. Gwadar provide these people opportunity. We need to create that environment. We need to work together. We as private sector need to work with the policymakers. The policymakers need to hear from us how this is all going to benefit. So I would completely echo the same sort of understanding, the same sort of response that I would have for this. And of course, Gwadar is essentially important, and we need to empower the local people and provide them the opportunity and not make them sufferers like that in case of Sui, but make them beneficiary like in case of Thar. Now coming back to the toll roads. Now the toll roads have different models. If, you know, this, who's the user? The ultimate user is actually paying, whether it is developed by finance coming from the US, Germany, or Pakistan, or China. It has to be paid back. But look at the economic benefit. Do not only look at in isolation that what is the fund flow. Capital doesn't have any borders. We need to look at the fund flow and the ultimate economic benefit. So Pakistan is a country which is stressed in terms of finance, and public-private partnership is the answer. If the private finance can come from Pakistan, it's excellent. If it comes from any other part of the world, it's completely fine. Yeah.
And one final comment, please, from Mr. Khalid Awan.
Okay, thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation by the presenters. My name is Khalid Awan, and I want to very respectfully, not a gray-haired advice, but some thought that I want to leave with the audience at this time. There's a saying that the day will happen whether you wake up or not. This initiative of this One Belt, One Road is a Chinese-driven initiative. It is nothing, Pakistan has only got any reactive role in it. It is a global initiative that will set up the trend of the global economy for the decades to come, and especially for the new generation. Now, all the skepticism that has been heard is very valid, and these are the things that we all think from our point of view. This is a time when not only Pakistan, but 60 nations around the world are affected and will benefit to greater now, it is the quality of your engagement with the main movers of this, how you benefit from it. Some of the countries will benefit greatly, some will benefit not so much. South Africa, for example, I had a chance of discussing with them. They said that about a decade ago, they negotiated with Chinese, in a very astute manner, that any project that will come there will have majority South African participation at that time. I mean, these are the kind of things in the domain of our political leadership, and unfortunately, we haven't seen that kind of an engagement to set the direction for this. So it was forums like this, and the businesses will have to adapt. I think business always adapts to the economic realities and change times. So it's a much bigger thing, it's a much more pervasive thing, it's the one that's going to shape the future of our economy, the future of the world, and our younger generations. So we've got to, I can't emphasize more that we take a very professional and a very deep view on these things and engage and take it very seriously. Thank you.
Khalid sir, thank you very much. And I think that's the key message which we are bringing in. When we talk economic zones, they are being formulated, engage. When we talk about the contract and the structure, engage. Policymakers are looking for input. They might not have that initiative which a private sector can have. Please engage, form some groups who can work in that direction. But we have to engage as a private sector back to the policymaker. This is a new thing as well as for them, as we see them. They have their own challenges. We can help them to understand it better in economic reality and make it happen for them. And rightly said, it is going to happen whether we take a benefit or not. So let's see the opportunity side and make it happen by engaging better. So here I'll thank the audience, and I'll thank specifically Ayla for presenting all that. And
please show your appreciation for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you all.
A fascinating discussion. And could I please ask Mr. Arshad Khan to come back to the stage and present our panelists with a token of our appreciation.
Good question to start.
I thought I'd throw the cat among the pigeons. Thank you so much. We had